Racism. What an ugly word and an ugly topic and an ugly reality too often. It's a bit surprising, from my perspective at least, that we have this continuing as an issue. My generation was supposed to clean all this up, and I have to tell you, I'm not certain if we made any progress at all. Hopefully the next generations can. But with that, let's dive and talk in about the precepts, because about the only way to sit down and have a change in racism is through laws, and we have some that we're working on. So let's take a look at, wait a minute, we have probably the first establishment of it is called the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We really have a founding precept. And yes, the people that wrote this, they were oblivious to a couple issues about what all men is, and then also all people. So you have that kind of issue. But they put right in here, endowed by their Creator. A couple things. If you believe that there is a Creator, capital C, and that Creator made everybody equal, then if you're treating somebody differently because of the outer shell that they have on, you aren't following what the Creator had to say. If you believe that the United States holds these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, you really have a hard time justifying the fact that I'm a good American and I want to be as prejudiced as I can. I guess we can't control the actual feelings of a person on the inside. I'm not certain that should be our goal, especially as a nation. But I am certain we can control the actions on the outside when it comes in the areas of employment. In employment, we have laws that have already established that we have a statutory basis of equality. And that is built around that original document, that founding document of this country. And no, we've not been perfect over the years, over the centuries now. But the reality is there is a precept, and we are moving closer and closer to that aspect with having a set of laws. And if you look at other nations, this is not necessarily their goal and their focus. A friend of mine, she's a dual citizen of the United States and of Egypt. On her driver's license, she has that, for her Egyptian driver's license, she has her religion on it. Well, that said, they can discriminate based upon religion. You can't do that here, and thank goodness you can't, and also thank goodness you can't discriminate based upon race. It happens quietly, secretly, a lot of times out of view of the general public, but the reality it still happens, and it's all up to the individual to sit down and examine their own conscience where they sit in that. And whenever they cross a certain threshold and somebody gets fed up with it and it affects their employment or other aspects of it, they have a legal right to sue in our country, which is what really we have the EEOC for, and hopefully a reporting mechanism, especially when it comes to employment. It's unlawful practice if you refuse to hire or discharge anybody or otherwise to discriminate against any individual with respect to his compensation, terms, conditions, or privileges of employment based upon their race, color, and you can go on. To limit, to segregate. You have all these different aspects of it. We have a legal structure that is set up to prevent discrimination and hopefully have a statutory basis of equality. Race is first and foremost among the titles, really in Title VII. It really was built to sit down there and focus in on race and employment. The EEOC, it should sit down, work on racism, but it remains a pervasive problem, obviously anybody who really bothers to look. And that can be dealt with through training and everything, but you still can't control people because we are humans, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, except for the fact there's an enduring impact on race-related incidents that can sit down there and affect and chill a workplace. U.S. Census Bureau, you really have, if you look on the numbers, you have the blacks and the Native Americans, they have a lower upward and mobility and higher downward mobility than other racial groups, and there's pay gaps based upon lines. Some of the recent data within the last 5 years, makes it look like we have a change in that. We also have maybe a change in some attitudes as of just recently. If you look here from 1989 to 2015, it looks like, according to this study, showed that there's no change in racial hiring since 1989. Now, you have to always take every study with a grain of salt, because there's one study here, and too often the new studies they have aren't studies at all. They start with a presupposition and they find evidence to support that. But that said, there really is evidence to show that there are some aspects of this that we have to address and continue to address about racial inequalities. And most of it really, in my opinion, lies in when somebody walks in that door, that in the first 2.5 to 7 seconds, people make a presupposition of who and what that person is, whether or not it's true or not. That I view that as always wrong. You need to listen to people. You need to give them a chance. And that chance, that employment window, you need to sit down and listen for 30 minutes before you make a decision as to whether or not you're going to hire them. I think if we started focusing in on some of the basic elements, if you have a large number of full-timers and part-timers, then make certain your part-timer staff really is a focal point. In my world, in the aspect of hiring teaching professionals, professors for a college, 44% of all the full-time professors come from the part-time professors. If you sit down there and have a good racially diverse pool of part-time professors, you'll end up having a good racially diverse pool of full-time professors. And I'm not certain we're looking for diversity. What we're looking for is the best teacher. But a lot of times, people will sit down and listen to somebody from their own background, their own culture, because of the fact we're humans. Let's talk about the aspect of what this really is. A lot of the EEOC, the Revised Race and National Guidance, acknowledges evolving demographics of interracial families, multidimensional issues of discrimination. There's an increase in race and color changes happening with a lot of different aspects of age, gender, national origin. The Title VII discrimination, it covers all these different aspects: ancestry, physical characteristics, race, culture, perception, association, subgroups, or race plus, and also reverse discrimination. All that is part of Title VII. National origin discrimination is prohibited, including in employment decisions. Did you hear what I said? Employment decisions. That's all parts of it. Harassment, accent discrimination, English fluency, and also English-only rules. I related earlier my own issue with accent discrimination. I was trying to hire a college professor for math. The committee wanted to do telephone interviews to save time, plus also our college at that time was hard to get to. They wanted to avoid having people pay transportation costs or the college having to pay for them to come out for the interview. We had 10 candidates. We listened to all 10 on a 15-minute interview on the phone. 7 out of 10 of the candidates were rejected because their accent was too thick. Okay, we stopped doing the phone interviews. We went back to the other system. I appreciated the fact that they wanted to experiment, but you can't sit down and throw somebody out because of their accent, because they're not fully communicating. Because if you dive into the research, 92.7% of people, when they don't understand what is clearly being said, they rely on nonverbal communication to additionally focus in as to what's being said. We were missing part of the overall communication and pitch by those 7 different people, at least 7, if not all 10, because of the fact of accent discrimination. These are real issues that are focused in the employment world. And you know what? If you don't, some lawyer may sit down there and make you focus in on them. So you have to pay attention to this. Racism, what is it? Is to believe that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities automatically. We have this political pushback against systemic racism. We have unconscious bias. I hate to tell you this. It is a human condition. It is a human condition that every human has. We have a tendency to focus in on the people that we are used to hanging around with. And if you are white, you will focus in on the whites. I have seen multiple times every racial group focusing in on associating with people from their own race because And from my perspective, I don't know why. It's just a matter of how we do things because of how we're raised. It's part of our overall cultural and culturation. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But the social networks also form the social networks based upon shared experience and cultural backgrounds. We've seen this happen also in the aspect of politics. You will have multiracial groups in politics that'll gravitate towards a certain pocket depending upon the left or the right or center or whatever that may be. Economic factors. Right now, I'm talking to you from California in Orange County, California. This is a relatively wealthy enclave of people that are massively multiracial. I mean, like literally across the entire spectrum, but that just a few miles over, the economic factor is totally different than it is literally in the next county over. So you have economic factors where people will gravitate towards people that have similar economic factors, similar social networks. You have the aspect of discrimination. It's really about the ongoing discrimination in housing and lending, could be where it comes from, personal preferences. People sometimes like a really diverse community, and the social categorization. People like to categorize people into groups, and sometimes if you're not part of that group, then you are part of the out group. So if you're not the in group, you're the out group, and that could harden racist perceptions. Really, equality is a founding principle of our country. Racism might be a social construct. It might be a preference for somebody, except we're talking about employment law. You know what? Listen to these words. Racism in employment is illegal. That's pretty much straightforward, and make certain, and part of this course is to sit down and build the barriers up against discrimination, because when it comes down to who you hire, you need to hire the best person, and your eyes should be blindfolded about the outer skin, but focus in on the inner qualities that person has. That's kind of what your founding principle really kind of said. And that's what the law says today, and that's our goal, to make certain we're following the law, especially about avoiding discrimination in any and all places in the workplace. Take care.